Hello. So for this one, now we have come back from honeymoon and we're also now in our apartment. And I have found out now that I'm pregnant. So we found out that Grace was a honeymoon baby.
Yeah.
So we found out we were pregnant, and now the journey of bringing kids into our relationship has started, and cultural challenges with raising kids because when you grow up in different cultures, you see the way maybe your parents raised you and my parents raised me, and it's different. So you feel that maybe the things you learned from the way you were raised is the way that you should also incorporate with the way you raise your kids. And I agree that some things is good to bring in from each culture for tips on how to raise your kids. But we had some cultural clashes a few times.
Quite a few.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Like even before the Grace came, Tiffany, when she found out she was pregnant after the honeymoon, she was like, "Oh my gosh." I wanted us to be just two of us for a year, maybe before we have
Yeah,
children.
I wanted to wait at least like 6 months to a year, maybe before having kids, because I had never lived with a man before, and being newly married, you want to get to know your spouse, just them, before bringing kids in, because when you bring kids in, that's just going to be more attention towards the kid and just more stress sometimes.
I had never also lived with a woman before, but I could not wait to know my kids. So
Yes, yes. But so I was surprised, but then I was like, it's fine, of course, because kids are a blessing. I'm excited to have kids.
So, in an African family, when you get married, your mother-in-law buys a calculator and starts calculating the wedding date. In 6 months' time, she'll call you. So, what happened? Is the baby yet there? No or not? But also, I was excited to have kids because I was 31 at the time. And
Yeah, and I was also older, so I was not like, I'm like super mad or upset. No, I'm not mad because I was already older when we got married. So I was like, I don't want to wait too long also because I don't want to get super old and start having kids. Because the older you get, it's possible for women to have babies in their 40s or whatever older, but it's just not as easy. It's much more challenging when the older you get when you have kids.
yeah.
So I was like, oh, it's okay. But anyways, so we found out I was pregnant with our first one, which is Grace. She's our oldest daughter. She's 10 now, which obviously we're married 11 years. So she was definitely a honeymoon baby.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's when we found out we were pregnant. And then after she came, there was cultural differences that had started.
Yeah, and then sometimes there were little things like the child would have a hiccup, and then I would go to the room and get a piece of thread and put it on her head, and she's like, "No, no, no." I'm like, "No."
I was
This
like,
is
what
how
are you
I was
doing?
raised.
Yeah, I was
Thread,
like, yeah.
heels, hiccup.
And I would kind of look at it like, this is very interesting. Why would a piece of thread on the forehead heal a hiccup or stop a hiccup? I thought that was the funniest thing, and I was looking at him weird. And then also one time, I don't remember if it was Olivia, one of the kids also had hiccups, and we had family and visitors here, and one of them took a thread and put it on the forehead, and I was like, oh my. But anyways, those are cultural things. I guess they felt that it worked. And
I now believe it doesn't work. It doesn't have sense, and my mom would kill me if she hears that.
yeah, but those are just different things that we had, some cultural differences of raising kids. Like also one time, Grace, our oldest daughter, when she was, I think she was
Not
about
6 months,
no,
6 months.
Well, it was about like 8 months,
Oh,
8 or 9 months.
okay.
She was sick. We were living at that time in Washington State with my parents. We lived with my parents for a short amount of time.
It was about a month because we relocated and we're looking for our own
Yeah,
place.
because we relocated from California to Washington State, where I'm from. But Grace ended up getting sick with a cold, like very stuffy nose and a little bit of a cough. And so when she was sick, there were some cultural differences of how to take care of the cough or how to take care of the congestion. Like one of the things that we do is in the Western world is use a humidifier if they're stuffed up, or like the fresh mist or whatever. And in the humidifier, you add cool water. And because it's supposed to open up the pores of the nose when they're sleeping at night, you shut the bedroom door or whatever, and it brings cool air in the room for them to breathe better. But he was all like, no, it needs to be hot air, has to be steam. Why are you putting cold water in that?
Well, because when I grew up, they told us the reason we're coughing was because we exposed our chest to cold, so we wear our sweater all the time. So, and I was like, hey, a child cannot be sick and then you're putting cold vapor in their house. You're going to kill my child. And it was heated conversations. They were not like smiling discussion. Or I was like, that's not going to happen.
And it wasn't freezing cold air. It was just like a cool mist that came out of the machine to freshen the air of the room. But anyways, he felt that was wrong. And I said, no, that's the way my mom did it. When we were kids growing up, there was cool air in the humidifier and it helped us to breathe.
Then I also wanted to tell her how my mom did it. So I made a call to Africa to my mom. Because what my mom did was my mom would grind some ginger, add some honey to it, and then give it to the child, and the child will be instantly healed. When I brought out ginger and garlic and lemon to give my child, my mother-in-law was screaming in the house. I mean, she was like, no, you're going to kill the baby. And my wife was like, yes, my mom is right. You will kill the baby. I'm like, no, my mom gave me these things and look at me, I'm alive. My mother-in-law is like, that's why you're crazy. That's why you're crazy. They gave you ginger and honey when you were a baby. So I called my mom. I'm like, Mom, can I give the baby? My mom is like, yes, I did that. But you know what? Since they don't want it, don't do it. The baby will be all right. So I said, okay, fine. My mother-in-law and Tiffany went into their home office to do something. And I sneaked into the kitchen, got the ginger, the honey. I looked at the baby, snatched the baby, and I gave her. She cried, but believe me, she was healed. So it works.
So we feel that she was healed between the combination of his concoction and our humidifier.
It was my ginger and my honey, African concoction.
But I do agree now that it's healthy to give ginger and honey and garlic and those things to kids to help them because those are natural ingredients.
Exactly.
So I feel that that's good. But at that time I was like shocked because ginger is very strong. And I was like, "Ooh, that's going to burn her throat or whatever."
She survived.
I know, she survived. But anyways, yeah, so those were some beginning of some cultural differences with raising the kids when they were sick or different things that have happened, like how we just came through them.
I think one of the tough things also was that we were trying to follow what the doctors and the nurses were saying to the dot. Because they would be like, I remember when we came back with Grace from the hospital, they were all exclusive breastfeeding, even though you were not really producing enough milk for the baby.
I wasn't producing enough.
Oh boy,
and I tried many different options. I went to lactation consultants and I tried different food items, but I just wasn't producing enough to keep her satisfied.
And I kept saying we must do what the doctor says and the nurse said, and that it was a difficult time in my life because I was not sleeping. I was going to the office to sleep. 4 days after the child is born, I was just going to the office to rest.
Yeah, we both weren't sleeping, of course.
Yeah, every 15 minutes you got up.
I was up a lot in the night. Yeah. But then finally...
Well, one night Tiffany wakes me up and it's like, oh, can you carry the baby? She's crying. That day I looked at her, I said, never you touch me again. I am finished. I'm dying right now. Don't even dare talk to me. And I asked myself, how did I get here? I was praying for the baby. Now I'm really trying to screaming at my wife not to even touch me. Where did all my joy go to? So I rushed to Walgreens. I bought a bucket, not a bucket, a little can of formula.
The baby formula.
And we brought it home and then we gave Grace. She was about 4 or 5 days old. That little girl drank that formula. She slept until morning. I said, thank you, Jesus. Bless the formula company. And I'm not listening to the nurse anymore. And that's how we decided to raise the child, how we chose to raise.
Yes, and she turned out healthy and fine.
Oh, she's fine.
So we gave
her,
we gave her formula and she slept every night from then on. She didn't sleep through the night, but she slept longer. Yeah. So yeah, but that was a thing in the beginning because he felt that we should only stick exclusively to breastfeeding, which I totally agree. Breastfeeding is the best, but if you can't supply enough, then you got to go to the alternative to make your baby happy. Yeah. And to make yourself happy.
Yeah, and then we also spend a lot of our days as early parents, sometimes on things we could not agree, we went to Google. And that's what I would advise any of you not to do. Because Google, you say, oh, Google, there is a rash on my baby's hand, and Google tells you maybe the pancreas are failing. Like you see random answers. We're always in panic mode all the time. And so Grace is a baby that we raised with google.com. So we've learned that way. So yeah. Yeah,
and then when the other kids started coming, of course, we were like, we know what we're doing now. But also, I feel that sometimes when we were raising our kids, we would possibly get some opinions from people.
Oh boy, yeah.
So a lot of people felt that they knew how to tell you how to raise your kids. And sometimes I was like, ah.
Okay, that is in my own community though. A lot of people would come and say, "No, you should be doing this. You should be doing this." I'm not just suggesting, and so yeah, Tiffany could feel like she didn't even know what she was doing. But when the second child was born, I addressed some of the friends and families.
Because by the time the second child came, I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
But plus also, even before having Grace, I had some experience help working with kids because I was a nanny for kids many times, little babies all the way to school age. And I've worked in daycares in my past before marrying him. So I had lots of experience working with kids and how to take care of babies. So it's not like I was oblivious of ever touching a baby or holding a baby or changing diapers and all that stuff. But having your own child, of course, it's different because you have them through the night. A lot of the other kids, I didn't take care of them at night. But some of the people, like he mentioned, they felt that they should be telling me how I should be doing things.
For everything, advice is good, but when you give too much advice, you can help some people to feel insecure. And when the second child was born, a lot of advice still came. This is what you guys should do. So one day I stood up to those friends and some families and I said, look, let me tell you something. You see that other child, the first child? She raised that child. The child did not die. She can raise the second. And that's how I found peace because I was so controlling on how that she had to raise the child. I was against the child eating French fry. And if you cook food for the child, it has to be gari and okra soup. It will always have to be a soup. But this is America. There are 300 million people in this country who were raised in another way, and they're all alive. So by baby number 2, I had to relax my guts down. I believe my wife knew what she was doing, and I should focus on the things I have to focus on. And guess what? All 3 kids are doing extremely fine. Yeah.
All healthy, beautiful, strong kids.
Yeah, I'll show you pictures of them. They're beautiful. Yeah.
And then also in the beginning of the marriage, of course, like he had just mentioned, that he felt that every single meal that Grace ate had to be a homemade, from scratch meal of like soups and things and fufu or gari or whatever, okra soup, which of course we gave Grace her first okra and gari by the time she was 4 months old, and she loved it. So that's how we also got our kids to start loving the African food, because we started them young.
Yeah.
So that's a very good tip for you parents who are starting out, like, how do you get your kids to love the African food? You got to start them young so their palate is used to it.
Yeah.
If their palate isn't used to it and you start thinking, oh, let me start now introducing the African food to them when they're like 1 or 2 years old, they may take it, but their palate isn't going to be
they
as
would have been
loving it.
destroyed by pizza. Don't do it.
Or
Start with okra
other
soup.
foods that you maybe don't want them to have on a regular basis. Our kids still love Western food, but they also love their African dishes.
Yeah. Okra soup
Is really good for kids.
is so good, and it's the rite of passage for every African child. That's what I have to say. Yeah.
Yes, that's true. So I definitely feel that we did really good by introducing the African food to Grace and both of our other 2 when they were young, so then their palate was used to it. So, but I think that that's also really good, and that's in when I was also saying back in the beginning is Stans had said that every meal had to be some sort of a soup or homemade dish, and I'm not against cooking homemade things, but also I felt sometimes I gave only the soup or the home dish when it was, let's say, dinner time. Like during the breakfast, I would just give them easy things that were easy to make, like fruit and like a piece of toast or fruit and a pancake. And then lunch might have been like a sandwich or something simple, like vegetable or whatever.
I did not believe that lunch could be a sandwich. Lunch had to be a whole meal with soup and fufu or something. And you have learned.
Yeah, but we've learned, and then I've given, over time, I gave the kids soup and the foods that he wanted us to give the kids. And then he laxed down a little bit and was like, okay, it's okay to give a healthy sandwich and maybe some vegetables or whatever. So we both have, that's the word, negotiate. We both have compromised in a way where we both say, okay, it's fine to give our kid this or that. Yeah. So, yeah.
And the area of disciplining kids. What's your take on that?
Well, I have to say he is more of a strong hand discipliner. like in a way where the kids really respect and obey him like really, really well when it comes to disciplining the kids. He brings out the African fire, but not in a way where it's harmful to the kids, but they respect him in a way that they obey him really well. Me, they obey me, but I'm a little bit more, I guess, say, laxed in a way where I'm not
They
as.
protest sometimes.
They protest, and then I have to always say, well,
I'll call your father.
should I call your father? I don't do that all the time, but I mean, like, there's some little bit of differences in the way that we discipline, but I've learned more now and to be a little more stern with them in disciplining ways. And then, yeah,
we love kids, and we also believe that yes, if your kids misbehave, you have to spank them. Spanking is not the first solution, but if you've spoken and spoken, they have not listened. We use the rod of correction, like the Bible calls it, yes, to bring you back to order. Yeah.
Yes,
and
yes.
I'm happy that my wife, she got spanked by her parents, right?
Oh yeah, I grew up in a house where we were disciplined. My mother and father told us what we need to do, how we need to do it, and we obeyed. If we didn't obey, then we got swatted. Like it was actually a hard red spatula stick or whatever, and we got swatted. I have to say, a side note, that I was one of the best of my 3 siblings. But
I would tell them, they'll watch this video.
okay. So anyways, we were disciplined as children. We didn't get away with stuff when I grew up, because I grew up in a strong Christian family where we believed in disciplining our kids in a godly manner, but also a way to make the kids be respectful. Because if you don't discipline your kids, you're going to have kids who roll around and are disrespectful.
Nobody's going to like them. They'll be like zombies.
Yes.
They go to places that are like all over the place. No.
Yeah, so,
not my children.
And that's a whole other topic that we could talk about. I don't know if you want to talk about it now. But
No, we can talk about it later.
yeah,
That's fine.
Yeah, but I think there's some things that parents should also learn about raising your kids when they're at other people's homes.
Yeah. How was raising kids different in your home, where you grew up, and now in your new family?
Yes. Like, no matter where you live.
No matter
like,
where you live.
I know we have a lot of followers from around the world, and you come from different cultures. So please share how you were raised and maybe how you were raising your kids today. Like, do you have an intercultural marriage like we do? Or maybe you're both from the same culture, but you have some differences.
And they're from different regions in the country. Yeah. How do you raise your kids?
Yes.
Does the husband has a say in the nutrition of the kids, and what were some of the challenges you experienced?
Yes. Well, that's it for this video, but thank you so much for watching, and we look forward to talking to you again in the next video. Bye. We love you.
Bye. Thank you.